Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about fear. Fear of not doing enough. Fear of letting down your children. Fear of really screwing things up by unschooling. We're going to cover some practical tips, maybe how to get out of that fear state, and really just dive into the process that is raising kids, allowing them to learn, walking with them, all that stuff. So with that, let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about trusting the process of unschooling. I think a lot of parents out there are pretty scared that their kids are going to grow up, get in their teenage years, get in their adult life, and they're not going to have the skills or the educational background that prepares them for the future. So I'm just going to cover what I think are the reasons why you should trust the process, and address some of the common fears as well. So let's dive in. Why parents fear the unschooling approach will be our first point. I think parents worry about the future academic and career success of their kids without structured schooling. And I think this is a legitimate fear. But at the same time, I think that the unschooling process is probably what's going to prepare them better, at least if you're an intentional unschooler. And again, I'd ask you to go back and listen to my episode about intentional unschooling. It's a different type of unschooling. If you're doing intentional unschooling, I don't think you have anything to worry about, because you're going to be an intentional parent, providing resources, looking for opportunities, exposing them to do different things in order to prepare them for the real world. I think that parents are scared that the things that the kids are doing is since maybe it's so minimal, so much their academic work is so minimal that they're not going to be prepared. And I would argue that in order to be prepared for real life, life as an adult, that you're going to have to do very practical things. And that's exactly what unschooling is going to prepare your children for, is when something comes up in life, you're going to allow them to learn by walking them through the process and teaching them if that's what's necessary, or allow them to make mistakes and then they'll understand it. I think there's concerns over whether unschooling will prepare their child for traditional education, and I think that's a valid concern as well. But I think that adopting to a traditional educational environment where they're jumping into something that they want to learn, meaning, let's say they want to be a nurse, well, they're going to already know that they have an interest in medicine, that they have an interest in the medical field, and they're going to be motivated to learn those things. And if they don't have an interest and they jump in, then they should probably get out, right? But I think unschoolers are uniquely prepared to know themselves better than those kids that went to traditional schooling, simply because that's part of the point of unschooling, is getting to know yourself, at least in my book. I also think there's social pressure and external judgments that amplify our self-doubt and make us second-guess ourselves, and that's just a part of the process. I mean, that's with anything. We're doing something pretty radical. We're unschooling our kids. We're opting out of traditional schooling. Now, I think that the majority of the human experience has been unschooled, of course, right? And you could argue that the 21st century is maybe different, that we need to have traditional schooling. But I can tell you, I went to public school, private school. I was homeschooled. I was unschooled for more than a year, or a little over, an entire school year. I can tell you that I got to know myself better during that year I was unschooled than I got to know myself in any other time. I found myself in my, how old was I? I mean, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, getting to know myself. How much sleep do I need? All these things about myself that I wanted to know. I had to do that as an adult with children for the most part, because that's when I went on that journey. Because you're just doing what everyone else tells you to do, and you're trying to be successful. You're trying to make sure you're financially stable. You're trying to go down the road that people you respect and love tell you to go down. That could be, just society itself, you could call it. But the truth is, success is defined by you. You get to determine how you want your life. And until you get to know yourself and what you're looking for out of a career, out of life, then really you're just playing someone else's games. And I think unschoolers are uniquely prepared in that they are focusing in on what their purpose is in life, what draws them in, what their interests are, how much sleep do they need, how much do they like to work with other people, how much do they, all these things, what are their gifts, what are their deficiencies. Knowing yourself is incredibly important, and that can play a pivotal role in the direction of your future. And again, most kids are getting out of the house at 18 and they have no clue. Most kids are graduating college and have no clue the direction of their life. And they've already spent all this money on a degree, and it's like, oh my gosh. They go into tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Slow down, get to know yourself, and then choose a direction. Don't guess on it and end up in the hole in student debt. That's a horrible choice, in my opinion. Moving on, to calm your fears, I think we should look at real life success stories. Find people who are already doing this. Find people who have been successful. Find people who, talk to a kid or watch a documentary about a kid or a documentary about a whole bunch of kids or something. Like, find people who are doing what you want to do, unschooling, and have done it successfully. Find them and talk with them. Study what they did. It's part of the reason I did this podcast, is because I wanted to be an example for others. Because I have spent a significant portion of my life not of my life. In a period of my life, I spent a significant portion of time trying to understand how to best educate my children. And I didn't necessarily go down the unschooling path to begin with. I kind of arrived on it. And I started looking into understanding the human brain. I already knew a little bit about education as an adult because that's what I did for a living. I educated adults, so I kind of had to know that stuff. And what I found was that children aren't that much different. There's definitely unique things about children, for sure. But if I want to prepare them for adulthood, I needed to learn more. And they weren't incredibly different from adults in that we want to do something that we think we're contributing to society with. And you might not phrase it like that when you're young, but you want to do something good with your life. You want to do something that's helpful. You want to do something that you enjoy. Kids always have these big dreams. Let them try out their dreams when they're young, right? That's part of this whole thing. I want to encourage others to have their children live their best life while you doing it at the same time. I feel like I'm on an unschooling journey. I feel like I'll never stop, to be honest with you, because I think it's part of the human experience. We either do this as children and get to know ourselves really well and find out our gifts and our weaknesses, all that stuff, or we can do it as adults. People who are successful do it at some point. And I just want to encourage you through this podcast to, I'm a step ahead of the game maybe. For you, my kids are 10, 9, and 6. Hey, look, I might be your example of success at this point. My kids are doing pretty well. I might be the example of success that I've always looked at because I did do it a year before it even had a name, at least as far as I knew. So anyways, just find people, I guess is what I'm saying, that are already doing this well. And that should calm your fears. Maybe find a mentor, something like that, or someone to coach you. We do have a coaching program through Unschooled Unleashed, where I calm those fears because I know how scary it is, even having gone through the experience. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I got the a link in the description. Let's see here. Moving on. Real life success stories. I want to make one more point. Okay, you can find someone who's already doing it that's successful. And you can also prove that it's successful along the way. Get your kids involved with stuff. Have them actually do things that produce a result that shows that they are really retaining, really learning something, able to produce with it. School is this big arbitrary mess of a simulation. It's not real life. They want you to treat it as if it's real life, but it's not. So we're going to make a project for no reason other than to make a project to learn something, right? How about make a project or do like a project and actually have it be used? For example, you can do a science project. You hear about these competitions in schools all the time. Doing a science project. Hey, we're learning this principle and that principle. Hey, very fun. But when you're doing a science project that, for older kids, where you're, the goal is to maybe innovate a little bit, have them make something innovative as an unschooler. Not just to go through the process of like, oh, we got to do this, so let's just make a volcano. No, actually have them try and create something new and learn from that. Have it, if they want to do something entrepreneurial as the project, have them actually put it out in the marketplace. Make it real world. This is the advantage of unschooling that a lot of kids in school do not have, unless it's a unique school. If they want to code, let them code and actually build an app, do something like that. So at least with the older ones who can have that freedom on the internet. So wrapping that bullet point up, let's say, that point is use evidence of success to build confidence by actually having them do things and eventually getting to that success mark. They're going to fail a whole bunch of times, and maybe that's the evidence too, is they learned a lot along the way and they were able to build something on the other end that really didn't have any value in the marketplace whatsoever. Fine. But they got to it, they were able to contribute something that works, and they learned along the way. Moving on, the science behind trusting a child's learning instincts. Children have an innate desire to explore and learn. They're naturally curious. We are learning. We are leaning in to the curiosity of children in order to drive the learning. We don't learn anything unless we're curious. We certainly don't retain it unless we're curious about it. This is unschooling's gift, is your kids are rapidly learning something. They're naturally interested. You don't have to pressure them. And they're able to retain it better than others. This is what happens. Without the constraints of a curriculum, kids learn without burnout or resentment or hating math, hating reading, all that stuff. You just have to make it fun. I know my kids all love math. Every single one of them love math. Every single one of them love reading. Now, granted, they're 10, 9, and 6, but I already have nieces and nephews that have told me I hate math or I hate reading. Wow. Talk about setting those kids up for success. School's doing a knockout job, right? I know that with me, I've mentioned this example many times, but it truly is. It was very impactful in my life. I was in one of the early grades, whenever you learn fractions, and I was out with, I think, the flu for a week. And I came back, they just handed me a stack of papers. As far as it looked like as thick as the Bible to me. But a stack of papers, and said, here you go, have this done. And the class just kept moving, right? And it was learning fractions on my own. I had no idea what I was doing, and I really began to think I was bad at math because of this. But no one ever introduced me to fractions. They just handed me the paperwork and said, do these worksheets. And I was so far behind as far as that's concerned. Another example is when I went over, and it was in second grade, I enjoyed writing stories. We had these stories that we wrote every day, and I looked forward to this every day. I loved writing. When I left second grade and went into the third grade, in third grade, they told me I could not write the topic I wanted. I wrote every day about King Kong versus Godzilla in second grade. But in third grade, they said I needed to grow. So I wasn't allowed to write about the things I enjoyed anymore. I hated writing after that. It really destroyed it for me. And I think that when you try and force kids to do things that they don't want to do, you're going to make them hate something. Hate may be a strong word, but you will make them resent it. Resent math, resent reading. That's what happened to me. That's what I see happening to a million other kids. And when you talk to American children, how many of them actually enjoy reading and writing? How many of them enjoy math? How many are actually proficient after they get out of high school? It's not good, guys. It's not good. Having taught a lot of college graduates basic math, even the colleges aren't doing their job in many ways. And I just don't have anything more to say about that. It's a tragedy. Moving on. So we need to let go of control. The fear is coming from you thinking you have to do everything, and we're trusting in the process. All you have to do is create an environment that offers a ton of resources, a ton of support for your children on their various interests, and just lean in with them. Be present. Be a resource provider, not an overseer. Do not force them. Allow them to learn and what they're interested in. My kids right now, literally right now, are practicing their multiplication table because they like sitting on a screen, so I'm using that as an advantage. And we downloaded this app called Synthesis, and it's for, I couldn't tell you the ages. It's for younger kids, I think up to like 11, to learn math, and it uses AI. It's like an AI tutor. Okay, now I haven't subscribed to it, but they have a multiplication game that's free, even if you don't have an account. So they practice that and see how high they can get up. And the reward on the other end, again, I've done podcasts on rewards. I'm not a big reward guy. But one of the things that I will do is gauge their commitment. And that's what I'm actually doing. Okay, you want to learn math. You're really into math. If you practice for 30 minutes a day doing your multiplication table, I'll pay for the app. And I think it's like $40 a month or something. It's really expensive. But I'm willing to invest in my kids with this app if this is something that's going to help them. So they're super motivated about doing this, their multiplication tables on this app. They actually text me when they start and text me when they stop. So that way I know they got their 30 minutes in. And if I see they're committed, then I'll go over and put $40 a month to their learning for sure. But I'm letting go of control. I'm not forcing them to do it. I'm just creating the environment, giving them the resources to do it. And you got to be quick though, guys. You got to keep the resources coming, because you're going to hit a point and they're like bored, and that's not where you want to be. You want to keep them engaged, especially in the basics, like reading, writing, and arithmetic, stuff like that. Moving on. Addressing the concern of, am I doing enough? The am I doing enough syndrome. Okay, rest assured, slow progress is still progress. Not every day will look traditionally productive, if that makes sense to you. There will be days it won't appear they did anything, and that's totally fine. The brain needs to be off sometimes, especially with children. Like learning, they're always learning. But something that takes a lot of energy, mental energy to do, give them breaks. It's totally fine. Don't think that every single moment has to be learning. That's the trap a lot of people fall into, especially when they get curriculums. Recognize subtle achievements, such as new vocabulary. Maybe they found a new creative way to do something. Or, maybe there's a social aspect that they're like, hey, they got some friends. They're really spending a lot of time with them. Good. They need friends. They need relationships. That's part of learning. That's actually one of the major things in life, as far as successful people have successful people around them, or have good relationships around them, I should say. Not success. Well, they have successful people around them too, but you need good communication skills. You need to be able to read the room. You need to be able to play well with others. All those things are social skills that are needed. So don't worry about it. True learning may not be measurable by grades, okay? In fact, I would argue true learning isn't measurable by grades. You can regurgitate stuff, but if you forget it, what does it matter, right? You'll see an increase in confidence and capability when they've learned something, and they're going to build on that. And that's what you're looking for. Okay? Moving on. Recognizing signs of growth beyond academics. So I already covered that. Let's skip that, unless I didn't cover something. See, this is where I get out of myself. All right, I'm going to cover, I did miss stuff in it. All right, so now we're going to dive into it. Growth includes emotional intelligence, decision-making, and, like I said, social interactions. So look for just signs that demonstrate they're becoming more independent. What you want to do, your goal is to raise a capable, healthy, and whole adult. And that starts very young. Okay, you're training them to be an adult, a healthy, whole adult. Give them good habits. Allow them to learn about themselves. If they allow them to build emotional intelligence, right? When I say allow, I mean just don't be oppressive. Allow them to make mistakes. Allow them to really take some risks. Nothing catastrophic, of course, but that's how we learn. Okay, so allow them to live life and figure it all out. Moving on, reframing success and educational goals is another way to stave off your fears. Remember, success in unschooling isn't just about academic milestones. So like the times table, for example. I really want this milestone. I want my kids to know the times tables. Even though I'm told in the United States, they're really not focusing in on them anymore, which is a shame to me. What you really want is life skills, character growth, focus on adaptability, curiosity, resilience as markers of success, as opposed to they learn their timetables, they learn the quadratic equation, they're able to write an essay. I'm really focused on making a healthy whole adult, so I want them to be very well-rounded. I want them to be able to teach themselves, be able to change on a dime, right? Adaptability. I want them to be able to contribute to society in a major way, following their curiosity and doing what they do best, right? That's what they're searching for. That's what I want to focus on with my children. And that's my markers of success. If I miss anything, I'm sure they'll be able to find out a way to learn it. The internet isn't going anywhere anytime soon, hopefully. And everything's on there and you can learn rapidly. In fact, the self-taught people seem to do best. And we're focusing in on learning on like being self-taught in pretty much everything. Some of the, I'm going to be getting a bunch of books for my kids that they can just pull off a shelf and start to learn stuff about. We let them read as late as they want, wake up as early as they want, when they're in bed to read. They are learning how to teach themselves. And that's what I want. So anything that I miss, they can fill the gaps as time goes on. Also, I'll move on. I got too much for this episode apparently, and I don't want it to go too long. Moving on. Build a support system for yourself. That's another way to do it. Find those people who are already doing it. Maybe it is the mentor. Maybe it is, others doing something similar, right? But find other people who are doing it and just talk with them and just get your fears out there. Talk about what they've done and how they've been successful and pick up new strategies. Go to the park. A lot of those homeschoolers are there, especially during the school day. Look for books, online resources. There's online communities, all that stuff. You need a support system. You can't do this on your own. So get out there and do it. Moving on. There's something that's implicit that happens if you have a lot of fears, and that is that kids will pick up on the anxiety you have. They will pick up on the doubts that you have about this process. So if you don't actually trust this process, model the confidence in the process that they're actually moving towards something good, something that is worth doing. Or if you're, then you're always going to be stressing and you're going to project a lot of fear into them. If that's the right way to say that, you're going to instill fear in them. And they won't even trust the process and they're going to feel like they're behind. So definitely figure out a way to gain some confidence in the process. Otherwise, you might be doing more harm than good. Reflect on lessons learned through your journey. Start journaling. Talk about what's working and what's not with your kids. Read more. You have to have trust in the process. Otherwise, the kids are going to pick up on it. Moving on, celebrate wins. And like when your kid has an achievement, no matter how small, celebrate, build their confidence. When we were doing times table without the app, we when they would get a series of what is it, like all the fours, 4 times all the way up to 4 times 12 or so, like all the fours right in the times table, we'd have them like run around and dance and celebrate, high fives, play some music. We made it fun. Celebrate the wins, reflect on the lessons learned, to help build their confidence, to help them know how to celebrate, to help them make this, to make it fun for them, something that seems a little mundane. You might even want to keep a journal of progresses and learning moments to remind yourself of the growth that they've had. I've done this with myself because you get to the end of the week and you're like, oh man, this was a wasted week. And what I found is when I went every day and put in my accomplishments, what I actually got done, no matter how small, and it doesn't have to be academic, doesn't have to be productivity. It can be, I got a restful day. I was able to watch the Cleveland Browns game and I enjoyed it. Well, maybe not enjoyed it, or seemed to always be doing semi-awful. Could could be anything, right? I put it in there, and then I would look back through at the end of the week and really kind of highlight all the things that actually got done, happened, and I celebrated that. And it's like, wow, I got a lot done this week. And again, it's not just productivity. It's like I got a lot of rest. I was able to sleep in. I was able to get this done, that done, this done. I was able to learn about this. I was able to complete this. Trust me, there's way more. So if you start keeping a journal of that stuff, if you're really worried, a list of, accomplishments or whatever it might be, or where they were able to grow, then you're going to see more of that along the way. Okay. Last thing I'll talk about is tips for embracing flexibility in your routine, because as unschoolers, we need to keep some flexibility. So embrace the unexpected. Learning doesn't always have a set plan. In fact, one of the reasons that we like to keep, I don't want to say necessarily free time, but we don't have a very rigid schedule, is because we want to take the time to dive into something when the kids are interested in it. Don't plan everything, leave space for adapting to that. You don't know what is going to come up that you're going to want to talk about. I mean, you might only have their ear once or twice on what a given topic. Make sure you take the time to answer their questions, to show them more about it. And that's part of the intentional parenting or intentional unschooling, is expose them to something. Take the time to answer questions, give them more resources on it. Right? Hey, have you ever learned about this? What about this? What about this? Anything interesting? Oh, that's interesting. Let me answer your questions on that. Here, this is let's add this YouTube channel to, we use an app called Safe Vision, which allows the parent to select what YouTube channels they can watch. And then they can learn a whole bunch of stuff on there. Beyond me just showing them and explaining it to them, because they're going to need to learn how to do this on their own too. Or even adding websites to the allowed list on the iPhone or iPad or whatever. And that's something else we do. Give them resources, but stay flexible. Don't be too rigid in your goals, because that takes it away from them. So some actionable tips for you and some resources for you guys is read books and blogs that feature real-life unschooling success stories. Participate in online forums, social media groups, or a real-life unschooling group that you can create or someone has already created in your neighborhood. Keep a journal and note daily wins, all right? So that way you're having progress. Model trust in your choices to inspire confidence in your children. Find a mentor, someone who's already doing it, or you could even hire someone to evaluate all this stuff or give you advice, or, whatever it might be. Like we have the coaching program. It's not for everyone, but it is for some. There's a very select person that I've envisioned that I can help. There are others doing this as well. Embrace moments of unplanned learning to enrich the educational experience of your children. So in conclusion, trusting in the process of unschooling means accepting that education is not a one-size-fits-all journey. Overcoming fear and learning to see the bigger picture provides your child with a rich, adaptable education that honors their individuality. Unschooling is about the long-term goal. Is about the long-term goal. Let me rephrase. Unschooling is about the long-term goal, which is raising capable, curious, and resilient adults who know how to learn, adapt, and thrive. Right? So with that, I'll end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.